I think it's been very hard for people to be public because there's a real fear, and a valid fear, that if you are a single parent, you could lose custody of your child. Mm-hmm. If you work for a city, as an employee, you could lose your job. Mm-hmm. Not because they're not going to fire you because you're Wiccan or pagan. They're too smart for that. They'll find something else, and suddenly you'll be without a job. Yeah. Or in the South, that suddenly there'll be a cross burning on your lawn or your house will burn. I mean, these things still happen in this country, and so people have a reason to be afraid. But the only way that it's going to change is if we act in spite of our fear. We live in a country that has a wonderful system of laws that can protect us. Mm-hmm. I started out as a civil liberties lawyer, and we're blessed in this country that we have protections. Yeah. And the fact is that the more we are who we are, as you were tonight when you did that really moving and beautiful ritual, the more we are present in the truthfulness of who we are, the more those stereotypes will change, and the freer and the safer we will all be. I've been a witch for 20 years, and when we were in the back of the broom closet, and you didn't discuss this with your best friend, and now you've got a television show. It's really it's amazing. It's fantastic. And I was getting front page coverage in the LA Times and USA Today and positive coverage. So people are beginning to understand that this is the ancient pre-Christian earth religion of the goddess, and that it is a peaceful and a beautiful religion, that it has tremendous wisdom and gifts to offer us as we enter this new millennium. And people are looking for what we have to offer.
If we act in spite of our fear, we give other people permission to not be afraid of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really important, because I think that's where a lot of the problem that folks have with the craft comes from.
It comes from misunderstanding.
Exactly. And they're afraid of us because of the superstitions and the misunderstanding and the misinformation that they've received. And so if we just become ourselves and be ourselves, then we're there.
Yeah, it's the only way it's going to change. It will not change it passively. We have to actively go out and change it. One of the things that I've learned over the many years is that you can't wait to have courage to act. Courage is the reward that you get when you act in the face of your fear. Yeah. It's the gift that life gives you on the other side of pushing through your fear. And my experience has been that there's nothing to be afraid of. I mean, the fact is that there were a lot of antagonistic and threatening phone calls from fundamentalists and from some neo-Nazis.
The hotel got a couple of calls last year.
And my response is, listen, he's your demon. You created him. You deal with him.
Don't put him on me. It's not my problem.
That's right. That's right.
I like that. We believe exactly the same thing. And a lot of folks will say things to us, and our response about that particular demon is, we didn't create him. We don't give him energy.
That's right.
We don't give him energy. We didn't start him. You guys did. You tried to scare us with that. No, we don't buy that. We're not buying into that whole thing.
That's right.
What is it like in another country dealing with folks who are afraid of you? What is that like? Especially with the language, a lot of times I know there's a language barrier, so that makes it also very difficult trying to get your message across.
Actually, it's very interesting. I mean, we could talk about that for a long time. It was a real learning experience for me. We were in Holland. The press in Holland was very sophisticated, and we had, again, primarily because of the Jane honor and because of Hillary Clinton and the association with her, suddenly we had a tremendous amount of press attention in Belgium and Holland and in England and in Ireland. And the press was in Holland and in Belgium. They were very sophisticated. I was having the kind of conversations I'd been longing to have when I was talking to reporters in the United States. And all they care about here is entertainment. They all wanted to know what I thought of Charmed and Practical Magic, and that was the end of it. But there we were talking theology, and we were talking about the correlation between the witch craze and the women's Holocaust, and they were marvelous and very respectful. Interestingly enough, there is a strange association in Europe that I was not aware of between paganism and neo-fascism over there. There are a number of very right-wing politicians who are publicly calling themselves pagans. So it's a very different kind of political. I mean, you can't imagine Trent Lott calling himself a pagan, right?
I cannot. I can't even wrap my mind around that concept.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Where is the connect? I don't even think I want to know where the connection is. Forget I even asked that question. We'll move on. I don't think I want to know what that connection is. But it's interesting you say that, because about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we had emails, because we email Janet Farrer and Stuart Farrer and Gavin Bone back and forth all the time. And they were telling us that they had that problem, that was just cropping up a couple of years ago, and told us to be on the lookout for it here in the States, because that was a real big concern with them over there, and they were really concerned that it was going to come over here and it was going to start over here also.
It seems to have its roots in sort of there's Webster. He's protecting us from. We're invoking demons, and he's protecting us.
He's protecting us.
All the rabbits in front of the table.
Yeah, I mean, there are historical roots that has to do with the rise of fascism in Germany and sort of the romantic Teutonic infatuation with the old gods of Germany. And there is a rising neo-fascist movement in Europe that we all need to be very aware of. There was a large neo-fascist conference shortly before we got there, very disturbing. So, at the same time that things are changing very positively, I mean, the fact is that the religion of the goddess is the fastest growing spiritual practice in the United States now.
Yes, it is.
There
and
is
we're
also
responsible
this,
for that. We all are.
There's also this sort of old force that's got a death grip that's hanging on, but that's the old way, and it's not going to last. In England, I found that the radio and television was quite open and very respectful, and the print media, we did the London Times and the Independent and the Express, were much more cynical. But that's their nature. They're very cynical, and they're very. I mean, there's Webster. Oh, I said his name. No, face the camera, Webster. I found that the printed media was much more cynical, although we did get some very excellent coverage. And when the excellent coverage seems to be coming from women.
What a surprise.
Because they understand.
Why am I not surprised?
It's goddess spirituality. Soon we'll be able to say it's the fastest growing spiritual practice in the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, one of the things that I do want to touch on, I'm not sure, I think we have just a few more minutes before we do another break. But I wanted also to get into the fact that it fascinates me from an archaeological standpoint that a lot of goddess figurines, a lot of cave paintings, they're all in Europe. And that must have an impact on pagans who practice and Wiccans who practice over there. They must at least probably feel maybe a little bit more vindicated than, we feel a little bit more removed, I think, from that, because it's not directly in our backyard. The Native American movement in the United States, in North America, is more of our culture base.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, because I almost think, this was a conversation that we had with them, that because it's not in our backyard, we appreciate it more than they do. In a sense, the mainstream culture, they sort of, oh yeah, those stones, Although we were in Glastonbury, and we went to all the sacred sites in the West Country, and it was amazing to walk into Glastonbury and you walk into a coffee shop, and there's this goddess and this god figure, and every single bookstore has pagan books in the window,
it's true. I mean, the mainstream in Glastonbury is pagan.
Yeah.
It's a very unusual little place, and it's filled with holy sites. It's a strange combination of the sacred and the profane. The sacred, of course, is the chalice wells and the Torah and all the land itself and the area. It's just filled with energy. It's an incredible thing. But then you walk down the high street, and there are all these little get your souvenir stores type of thing.
Get your souvenir goddess figure here. Yeah,
it's like Kate Ashbury, 20 years ago.
And there are kids sitting on the street playing musical instruments,
Badly. Great enthusiasm.
It's like a time trip, You think I'm back in California in the 60s, but it's an amazing place.
The most important thing that we got was the strength of the spirits of the land, which I think is at the heart of all the work that we're doing wherever we are. And when I was traveling all over the country, I found that the people who'd been doing this for a long time, as I had, that we're moving more and more away from sort of elaborate ceremonial systems to sort of the way you were working tonight, speaking the wisdom of the heart, and working with the spirits of the land, of the place of where we live, and making contact with that and understanding our roles as priests and priestesses of the earth, especially at this time of crisis.